Welcome back, and the crypto drama continues as we have now had the crypto summit at the White House. We now have more information on what is going to be potentially occurring with a Bitcoin or crypto reserve and kind of where this administration stands on crypto. But how do we make money in all of this, right? What does this all mean for Bitcoin, for crypto, for altcoins, for coins, for meme coins, for everything that's going on in this new digital economy? Is this kind of going to be substantiated? How do we actually make money? Because now we're hearing that Ripple may have shilled Solana for the crypto reserve. We're also hearing that a company has now chose Ethereum for their treasury strategy. And we're going to be going way more in depth on this whole crypto and Bitcoin reserve situation, where we are, where we're going, what my opinions are, and where the market is going more importantly. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. Give the video a free thumbs up. We upload almost every single day to bring you the latest happening in the financial world. Nothing I say is financial advice. Let's get right into today's topics. So keep in mind, I'm recording this before the actual day of the crypto summit. So some of this info may be a little bit on the dated side, but it doesn't take away kind of the bigger picture of what we're trying to understand here. From what we heard before the crypto summit, the participants were going to be around 25, including members of the Presidential Working Group on Digital Assets. And according to some reporters, they've already confirmed 11 crypto executives and 2 White House executives. And there was a lot of conversation whether this was going to include Brad Garlinghouse from Ripple or Charles Hoskinson from Cardano. And the preliminary showing was that the answer is no. Now, whether they actually were there or not, I don't think it matters in the grander scheme of things, as we talked about the other day on my video called The Crypto Reserve. I think that's literally what it was called. We talked about how, when the president tweeted about including XRP and including Solana and including Cardano in the strategic reserve, this actually may be a negotiating point, because we know there's going to be a lot of opposition to a federal or nationwide type crypto reserve, especially from a buying perspective. Because remember, the government has to approve this, meaning Congress, and getting Congress to approve anything, it can take years, and you still may not even get it done. And so understanding that, and understanding that even Cynthia Lummis, one of the US senators from Wyoming, who's been a big Bitcoin advocate, has said that you're probably going to see these crypto reserves occurring at the local level, meaning at the state and city level, before you see it happening on a federal level. So she's basically letting us know it's probably going to take a lot more time than most people anticipate, but maybe confiscated crypto or crypto that the government already has, they can put into a reserve instead of selling it. And we're now hearing that Bhutan, that was for years, literally, during the last, I think it was during 2020, maybe 2019, we found out that Bhutan was basically secretly mining Bitcoin for many years at a government level, right? The government initiated. And now we're actually hearing in this Al Jazeera documentary that Bhutan's prime minister tells the reporters how the strategic Bitcoin reserve helped finance their nation's expenses. So, this country is literally using Bitcoin, not only as the reserve, but as an economic driver for their country, because they're mining the Bitcoin, and then they're holding some Bitcoin, and they're also selling Bitcoin for different things. Now, I want you guys to listen. And this ties very much into what we're seeing happening in the US with Doge and the Department of Government Efficiency going into a lot of these organizations and saying, wait, why are we sending money overseas for this and that and this and that? And there's literally people in the US who are like, no, we need that funding. We need that funding. And it's like, wait, what about us? What about in the US? Why are we not funding our own stuff? Why are we not increasing housing, fixing the roads? Remember that bridge that broke down, that was hit by the ship last year? This is going to take years and years, maybe decades to rebuild, if it ever is actually rebuilt. And it doesn't have to be that way. It could be rebuilt in a year or two, if the money and the resources were put towards that instead of sending money overseas for everything, for whatever the different reasons are. I mean, there's literally so many different reasons that the US sends money overseas. And so listen to what the Prime Minister of Bhutan talks about. This is all about bringing the value, bringing the growth, bringing all of the positives back to the people of Bhutan. Let's listen in to what he says. And don't forget to give the video a free thumbs up.
There are hundreds of people who have made billions of dollars on the back of Bitcoin. Why aren't governments doing more? Even if it is seen to be
Prime Minister's chairing Top Gay says Bitcoin is a strategic reserve, one currently worth more than $1 billion.
So the Bhutan reserve is already over $1 billion. Okay. Now to put this in context, if you think about MicroStrategy, they have about $40 billion to $50 billion, depending on the price of Bitcoin, $40 to $50 billion worth of Bitcoin. These guys, this is one country. They only have 1 billion. But the difference is they're not taking out debt to finance all of this. And we're going to come back to that interview in just a minute. But I really want to stress this point because, listen, I'm not bearish on MicroStrategy, but in the medium term, I'm concerned because I do own the stock, I do own derivatives, but I believe that MicroStrategy is a huge risk because of the strategy that they're doing. Whether it works or not, nobody really knows. This is the first time that we've ever seen debt being taken out by a public company at this level to just go buy an asset that they believe is going to continue to go up in price. But during bear markets, it may not. But anyway, Strategy actually posted this on their X page. It says Strategy is the largest convertible bond issuer again in 2025. Year to date, Strategy is 30% of the US convertible market powered by Bitcoin. Now, they're making this seem like a very positive thing, but in my view, this is a huge risk. 30% of all the convertible bonds in the market today, this year, are MicroStrategy. And they're saying they're the largest convertible bond issuer again this year, meaning that they were probably the largest convertible bond issuer last year as well. This is usually done by like central banks and governments, not by publicly traded companies that are just literally buying Bitcoin. But then you could also say, on the other hand, right, companies take out debt to then go buy property, right? So a company will take out debt, go buy a property. They take out a mortgage. And they could be the largest, private owner of property in their city. But meanwhile, it's all literally owned because of debt. Now, you could say, well, yeah, but that's real estate. But Bitcoin is superior to real estate because there's basically no overhead. Real estate, you have property taxes, you have gas, water, electricity, employees. You have all of this overhead. And Bitcoin, all you have to do is hold it. And a lot of the institutional custody players will hold your crypto for like less than 1% at this point. So there's positives and negatives to this strategy that MicroStrategy is basically following through on, but there's also a lot of risk. Anyway, back to what the Prime Minister of Bhutan was talking about.
we have used Bitcoin for health, to provide free healthcare, for our environment, but these are minor. The main use of Bitcoin has been to finance the salaries of public servants.
Now, let's hold on right there, because what he just said to me is very important, right? He said these are small things. Funding healthcare for their people, that is not a small thing, especially to Americans who literally, the number one cause of bankruptcy, I believe, is medical debt, right? Because, I mean, you can go to the doctor and it literally costs $3,000. And that's because of insurance and all this other nonsense, right? But we've been told over and over and over that we can't have universal healthcare. And whether you agree with it or not, I'm just making a point. I'm not saying whether I agree with it or not, but we've been told we cannot have universal healthcare. We cannot afford it, right? And from my research, it would cost about $80 billion for the US to implement free healthcare for all, right? Universal healthcare, like basically every other country in the world has. They tell us they can't do it. And then meanwhile, we sent $350 billion to Ukraine, and Ukraine says they don't even know where half of that money is. Half of that money could have given us universal healthcare. Again, whether you agree with universal healthcare or not, that's a whole different story. I'm just putting out the numbers. And the Prime Minister of Bhutan is saying, well, giving universal healthcare to our people, this is a very small thing. Bitcoin is funding salaries of public employees. And so they're actually able to fund their government through this, not through debt. This is a big difference, guys, because the new world of finance globally is non-debt based, right? It's going to be based on hard assets. That's the whole point of Bitcoin. This is why MicroStrategy and Michael Saylor they're literally using the debt-based system against itself, right? They're saying, okay, you guys want to believe in debt and debt issuance, we're going to start issuing debt and we're going to buy this hard asset with it. And I mean, based on the basics of it, MicroStrategy in the long term is going to win by miles. What they're doing is very smart. Not saying there's no risk. There's obviously risk. But in the long term, this long-term strategy for MicroStrategy by issuing debt, using the system against itself by issuing the debt and then buying into the new system with that debt, it's unbelievable. Anyway, continuing on with what Bhutan's prime minister says.
Has been to finance the salaries of public servants.
Bhutan has built Bitcoin mines at locations across the country where thousands of energy-hungry computers solve complex mathematical puzzles to claim Bitcoins. And here's what's powering this is carbon neutral.
I'm not as concerned with that. I really wanted to hear from the prime minister, but you guys heard from him directly. I guess that was it. I thought it was more from the prime minister, but they're funding their government. They're funding employee salaries. They're funding healthcare, all with the strategic Bitcoin reserve. And this is why this whole conversation about the reserve is important, because the U.S. has a lot of debt. I think the most debt any time in history by any country. And if we don't lower that debt, and very rapidly, it's not going to be good for the currency and for the markets. And this is why there is this whole Bitcoin trade. But this brings us to our second topic, which is altcoins, or as some people call them, coins, right? Now we're hearing that Ripple pitched Solana as part of a national reserve in order to make inclusion of XRP in a reserve seem more legitimate, according to sources familiar with the conversations. Now, when we heard about the Bitcoin reserve or the crypto reserve, we kind of had an idea that there would be Bitcoin, maybe Ethereum, and maybe a few other coins. But then when the president actually tweeted that it would be Solana, including at least Solana, XRP, and Cardano, there were a lot of questions like, well, why Ripple? Why Solana? Why Cardano, right? And there is this kind of conversation that these were made in the USA and that these are US-based coins and all of this. And a lot of that could be argued. But at the end of the day, if Ripple shilled Solana, who shilled Cardano? Unless it was Ripple as well. Anyway, this is, again, preliminary conversation and alleged. We don't know for sure. But that kind of brings the question up. You know, what do the other people in the crypto industry think? Because we already heard from Brian Armstrong and the Gemini Winklevoss twins that they don't believe that these coins should be in the Bitcoin reserve or the crypto reserve. It should be Bitcoin only. And there's a lot of conversation that the summit is going to be really just focused on Bitcoin and maybe Ethereum. And then down the road, you know, they'll add other coins or potentially look at other coins. But Anatoly Yakovenko or whatever, he is the co-founder of Solana. He wrote, my reserve order preference or crypto reserve order preference is 1, no reserve, because if you want decentralization to fail, you put the government in charge of it. I think 1 is already done. I mean, the government is already kind of in charge of it, right? All the Bitcoin mining companies have come to the United States. We're seeing a huge push to bring more crypto and crypto products into the United States. So they're going to get involved and they're going to hold crypto. That's for sure. So 1 is not going to happen. But anyway, he says, 2, states run their own reserve as a hedge against the Federal Reserve making a mistake. Or 3, if there has to be a reserve, it's based on objectively measurable requirements. He said, I don't care what they are. They can even be constructed such that only Bitcoin satisfies them right now. They just need to be objectively measurable. and rationally justified. If there is a target to beat, the Solana ecosystem will get it done. This is a very interesting point. I mean, I think it all goes back to number two, right? We've heard this from Senator Lummis. We've also seen it from Dennis Porter going around the US kind of talking with lawmakers about doing this in the individual states. And some states have already gotten bills, passed through some of their, on the way to becoming an actual law or thing in the state. Some have shot it down already, and it'll probably be reintroduced. But I agree. I think that at a federal level, it's going to be very difficult to get funding to buy these cryptos, especially everything outside Bitcoin and Ethereum, because then the conversation does come up whether these coins are centralized, where the money is going, who owns the coins that are being sold. Like, these are questions that they're worried about. But it is interesting that the Solana founder, even though Solana may have been shilled by Ripple and may actually be wanted in the crypto reserve, he's not so sure about it, right? And when he says based on objectively measurable requirements, you could say maybe it's, effectively decentralized. There's no centralized control. You may say, it's been on the market for at least a certain amount of time and that there's enough liquidity. Or maybe you just say it has to be a top 10 cryptocurrency with a development company or development arm. I don't know. Like, there has to be certain measurable requirements. I would agree with what he's saying. Now, Hart Lambert, who says he's DeFi and Web3 and financial engineering, co-founder of the Across protocol and the UMA protocol, he wrote on X in response to Tolly's basically viewpoint on this. He said, incentive structure design. Brad Garlinghouse wants XRP in the reserve, but knows it won't get included if Solana isn't, so he promotes Solana getting it included as well. Tolly probably doesn't want XRP in there for legit reasons, but he also doesn't want ETH included unless Solana is, so he promotes no reserve at all. He says, my view is the strategic reserve makes crypto weirdly political, and we know how that goes. No reserve is best for the long-term success of the industry, in his opinion. So now you're hearing all different sides, right? You're hearing Bitcoin only. You're hearing, no, it has to include all these other assets. And now we're actually hearing no reserve. And that got me thinking, is no reserve better than a reserve? I would say the answer is probably yes. No reserve is probably better than a reserve. Now, I understand the point. Everybody wants a reserve, but the people want the reserve because they want the price to go up. The price will go up regardless if there's a reserve or not, regardless if there is an announcement or congressional approval to buy Bitcoin, Ethereum, or any other coin for that matter. And so this conversation, you really have to watch the communities and the ecosystems and the founders and understand which ecosystems are pushing this reserve for the price to go up, and which are pushing the reserve. Well, actually, they're not pushing the reserve, right? There's really only two sides. And so far, we now see Solana founder is saying no reserve, or potentially other things, but it sounds like he wants no reserve. And he says, my reserve order in preference. So no reserve would be his number one preference, right? We've also heard from Ripple's Brad Garlinghouse about potentially the reserve. I don't really think Brad Garlinghouse cares whether it's a reserve asset or not. I think that Ripple is going to do fairly well. XRP, on the other hand, who knows where the coin is going to go? There's still a huge amount in escrow that has to be kind of worked out. In Cardano, obviously, the whole Cardano ecosystem jumped on it and was like, look, we're going to be in the reserve, we're going to be in the reserve, we're going to be in the reserve. And it's like, even if you are in the reserve, it may be 1%. And if there's $1 billion, 1% of $1 billion is $10 million. That's not really that much when you're talking about a multi-billion-dollar market cap crypto, right? And so it's going to be very interesting to see how this all plays out and to see whether any of these coins actually get in a reserve, whether we even get a reserve to begin with. But personally, I think it's going to be Bitcoin only, at least at the beginning. I'd say the first implementation, whether it's congressionally approved or just something that the White House puts into place and the Treasury, I believe it's just going to be Bitcoin. maybe Ethereum, definitely stable coins. And then from there, we'll see what happens. But we have to get over the first hurdle, and that's getting a reserve, right? We also heard, now, there's also a lot of conversation about the different coins, right? Laura Shin posted this. She said, what do Ripple and Cardano have in common? Stephen Elrich, who is executive director of the On-Chain podcast, he calls them crypto billion-dollar zombie chains with no real adoption, but enough money to keep going. Thus, why would we put them in a crypto reserve? So let's listen to what he says about this.
A big one in Forbes last year in the magazine called Crypto's Billion-Dollar Zombies, which I basically defined what 20 L1s that had multi-billion-dollar valuations and what we said was little discernible use. We called them zombies because in the real world of finance, at some point, if you have a product that's not making any money, you'd have to take a down round, choke down an acquisition, go bankrupt. But these blockchains have just absolutely massive treasuries and low overhead. They could go on forever. That's the zombie. Ripple was actually the lead for that story, and Cardano was also in it. If you're trying to pick out like which tokens are going to stand the test of time for years, which I guess is theoretically what a reserve is supposed to be, I can't imagine XRP and Cardano making any sense because I just don't see a lot of people building on them. I don't see they don't generate much money, and I guess my assertion is that they're largely continuing to exist because they have charismatic founders, very involved communities of token holders that are loud on Twitter, and they have enough money to buy favor with the administration.
Now, whether you agree with that or not, that's definitely a different viewpoint as well. Listen, like I said, Ripple has businesses around the world. They have corridors for payments that have been implemented over the last 5-10 years. And I think that generally speaking, Ripple is going to be fine. But that does not mean that XRP is going to be fine. Remember, there is a big difference between Ripple and XRP. Ripple is selling XRP every single month or just about in the escrow that they get unlocked. They still have 37 billion coins in the escrow, which is 37% of the entire circulating supply, or the entire supply of XRP. And so would a government want to, and would a government be smart by buying into a crypto that the actual company doesn't even need to use? That's a good question. And then when you talk about Cardano, there's a lot of conversation about Cardano is still not really used. It doesn't have a lot of activity. Transaction volume and average daily users is down, right? These are factual metrics. Whether you agree with it or not, I mean, obviously there's a lot of people saying, Cryptoviser. And it's like, it is what it is, guys. It is what it is. That doesn't mean the price is not going to go up. But when we're talking about what the government is going to invest in or hold, I don't know. I mean, they're going to ask these questions about all the coins. It's not just XRP or Cardano, right? Why are they not mentioning BNB? There's reasons. Why are they not mentioning Dogecoin, Tron, Pi Network, Chainlink, Hedera, Stellar, Sui, Avalanche, Litecoin? And some of these, I mean, Litecoin is very decentralized. I mean, if you just think about the regulatorily approved coins, like the coins that the banks are comfortable with, just look at Fidelity Crypto. Fidelity Crypto has 3 coins: Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin. And these are the main coins when we're talking about regulatorily approved and kind of fully decentralized, and people feel really comfortable about kind of the decentralized nature of the coin and the structure and security of the network. You don't get that with all these other coins. And so again, these are just facts, okay? And so now we're also hearing BioNexus Gene Lab Corporation announces a board approval for an Ethereum treasury strategy. Now, this is a Malaysian company, so obviously we don't know what their business looks like and how much money they're actually making. Which, I mean, I guess it is a publicly traded company. Let's look. BGLC. BGLC. Because the thing is, some of these companies can say, oh, we're going to do a treasury strategy, and then they're buying like $1,000 worth of Ethereum. It's like, really? BLCG. It's not even here. BGLC. BGLC. And this is BioNexus Gene Lab Corp. It's 36 cents. The market cap on this is $6 million. Okay, so last year they lost 2.6 million. The year before that they lost almost 500,000. So yeah, I mean, very small company. But anyway, they approved basically a new Ethereum-focused treasury strategy. This decision marks the first NASDAQ-listed company to exclusively prioritize Ethereum as a strategic treasury asset, which is in line with the announcement of Ethereum being included in the U.S. Strategic Crypto Reserve. Concurrently, they released an Ethereum strategy white paper detailing the rationale behind the company's decision and the broader significance of Ethereum as a financial infrastructure asset. And so this is obviously a small company, $6 million market cap. Is it going to really drive the price of their market cap higher? I mean, maybe a little bit. It kind of did from 30 cents to 36 cents. Okay. Let's pull up the 1 year chart. Yeah. I mean, down from 80 cents. Here's the deal, guys. There will be a lot more companies than we've had, which is basically just MicroStrategy previously. So there will be more companies that are going to announce a Bitcoin or crypto reserve strategy, especially if the US follows through on this. It's kind of like the green light. And then once the banks start accepting, and it sounds like their back end at the banks are already kind of implementing crypto type payments and crypto type integrations. From what I'm seeing in my research, it seems like it's already kind of being integrated. So this could be really big for crypto in the medium and long term. I mean, again, if one company announces that they're buying Bitcoin, that's going to be a 100% increase from what we had, which was basically one, right? So if we have 10 companies announce it, that's going to be a 1,000% increase, and everybody's going to be like, oh my God, we've had 1,000% increase in companies announcing Bitcoin. But it's like, yeah, but it's only been 10 companies. How much are they actually going to be buying? So we really have to kind of approach this whole Bitcoin strategic reserve, what's going on with Ripple, Solana, Cardano, Ethereum, kind of really cautiously, because this could be just speculation. And this could also be the hype that is going to drive the market to its all-time record highs before we potentially enter a bear market and or a recession. I mean, there's a lot of economists talking about recession, and maybe not now. Typically, when the economists start talking about it, there is definitely a delay. But what that delay is going to be, 6 months, 8 months, a year and a half, 2 years, 5 years, who knows? But when the recession does occur, I think that we will potentially see more downside in the crypto markets. I mean, remember, my downside target on Bitcoin, I'm not saying it's going to go down, but I'm saying if Bitcoin continues to drop, downside target is like $50,000, $60,000. The upside is about, I think, 150 to 180. So we'll see kind of where this goes. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up. As always, thanks for watching. See you guys when I see you. As always, crypto on.